Welcome to the Meidas Defense Week in Review. I'm your host, Ken Harbaugh, joined by Bobby Jones. Before we get into it, a quick roundup of what we're tracking this week. The Iran war just keeps just keeps widening. 12 straight nights of U.S. strikes. Trump now threatening Iran's Pickaxe Mountain nuclear site, and Iran hitting back in the Strait of Hormuz. Tankers hit, merchant sailors dead, oil approaching $100 a barrel again. And now the Houthis have jumped in too, striking Saudi tankers in the Red Sea. Meanwhile, Pete Hegseth had a brutal hearing on the Hill, grilled by both parties over a war that has met none of its stated objectives. And there's growing evidence the Pentagon's been sitting on the real casualty count from that war, hundreds of American wounded missing from the official numbers, KIA figures altered as well, and no good explanation why. Joining me to break it down, Bobby Jones, retired U.S. Navy commander behind the Anchor Watch Substack. Bobby, good to have you back. Let's get into it. I don't know if you saw the latest, but 4 KIA scrubbed from the Defense Casualty Analysis System. I guess if you read the Pentagon's explanation, because they were killed during a supposed ceasefire. I'm not sure what the rationale is, but it's pretty damn offensive.
It's embarrassing because it shows that the leadership in charge of the Department of Defense has no idea of the honor and integrity that drives the Department of Defense. This is administrative because basically they do not want casualty numbers attached to this Operation Epic Fury directly. They don't want it. This is all for publicity. They had mentioned earlier on this campaign that some of these KIAs, they're going to try to attribute to Operation Enduring Freedom, whatever, because it was Jordan. This is insanity. It really is. And here's the thing that I'm thinking about too, depending on where you were killed in action, the theater, the designated operation, that can affect follow-on survivor benefits, how
That's
things are
right.
classified. There's legality assessed to this, which is one of the reasons why they're doing this. But needless to say, it's the most dishonorable thing that they have done directly affecting troops that I have seen. Because Lord knows if that was me or you, Ken, and our families having to deal with this, and they're like, Operation Epic Fury didn't kill them. My question would be like, then what the hell did, and why were they there? And people need to understand a lot of American forces have moved to Jordan because guess what? Their original places of operation, their bases are bombed the hell out. So this was just, I don't know where they're getting this. I don't know who's giving them advice on this, but it is a public relations disaster at minimum. And it's disrespectful as hell and sends a message to the troops at maximum.
Yes, it is almost as stupid as it is dishonorable. And the reason I bring that up, well, first of all, let me explain why. It's not as if they're going to be able to hide these KIAs. Everyone is talking about them. You and I are talking about them. We're not going to let their memories be erased. And the thought by Pete Hegseth that just by adjusting the numbers that the families are not going to realize that their loved ones are gone, that those caskets are not going to come home draped in the American flag. It is just so idiotic. And the reason that's important is because Hegseth and his team aren't any smarter when it comes to prosecuting this war than they are when it comes to messaging it. So as dumb as their public relations strategy is, you can bet that their war strategy is just as dumb, and Americans are going to die. This should be just a knife in the back of America's confidence in this Department of Defense.
I not only do I agree, the simplest thing a commander has to do is take responsibility and accountability for the people they lead. That's leadership 101 in the United States military since 1775. And the fact that Hegseth in 24 hours with that issue of the redesignation and then looking like a complete clown on steroids in front of the Senate Armed Service Committee shows me right there, Exhibit A and Exhibit B, why that man shouldn't be anywhere in the zip code of the Pentagon. But that's what we're dealing with. He cannot understand the morality of how he is supposed to treat his people, and at the same time cannot be held accountable by the people's representatives. And His Part C has no strategy, no end state, no plan to deal with this war, but yet asking for more money and can't even tell you how much they've spent and how much they're going to spend. He's a complete failure. And Republicans now recognize it too. And my thing is, how much longer is it before the Republicans and Democrats impeach him? Because they can do that.
They can. They have the power. They have I would say not just the authority, the obligation at this point. Every veteran watching his testimony saw this, and I'm going to explain in a second, but I want you to describe this feeling for the non-vets in the audience. When Pete Hegseth responds to a question about his incompetence by saying, "How dare you impugn the honor of those fighting?"
There we go.
He wears the cloak of other people's honor to mask his own incompetence.
Mhm.
And if I normally don't get angry on this show, but something like that, it's hard to
That
keep
is
it
my
down.
biggest issue with him. He is a moral coward on so many levels, because if he gets criticized, he's like, "How dare you, impugn the honor of the." I'm like, "Bitch, shut up." He's
Yes.
telling the senators are telling you, "You suck." Not them, you suck. And more importantly, the fact is, you never ever, ever, ever laid out for the troops, for the people, for the world, what you're trying to do with such passion as you sit there and deflect and hide behind some.
Yeah.
He's the guy that hangs out with the schoolyard bully, throws a rock at somebody, and when that person comes to whip his ass, he hides behind someone else. He's that guy.
Yeah.
Right. And when you think about it too, this goes back to his failure in uniform. He didn't take accountability then. So why are we shocked and surprised that he cannot sit there and say, "Yes, this is on me. I hold the responsibility." Dwight Eisenhower had in his pocket during D-Day a speech he was going to give if the invasion failed.
That's right.
We are so light years away from that type of leadership in the same Department of Defense. It melts my mind. But that's our leadership, ladies and gentlemen. Someone that has a nice, smooth, greased up comb back, but cannot sit there and tell you how many people have died on his watch, how many people are wounded under his watch, and why their care has been lackluster, which is why you see all those medics going to Germany. Can't answer those questions, but you can tell me what Biden did freaking over 2 years ago. It's insane. It's insane.
And when it comes to those who have died, you have the president himself now putting words in their mouths. It's one thing to deny their sacrifice by erasing them from the DCAS. Another thing to deprive them of a voice. But when you're actually putting words in their mouths,
Yes. Yes.
I'm trying to think of an example of that of any other president in American history, and explain what I'm talking about. When
No,
it got off the
never
rating
before.
horn.
So Trump, he was doing one of his little ad hoc press gaggles, and first off, he just dismissed. Yeah, no, it sucks that those guys died, but like just completely switched, did not
Oops.
anchor on the
Yep.
loss or the sacrifice. It was almost like it was a clerical error. Then when when he gets into it, he's like, "Yeah, those guys before they died said, hey, we're willing to take the risks for whatever it takes to keep Iran without a nuclear weapon." Just completely making that crap up. I'm just like, are you serious? Because he has to create this reality. It went over so bad with veterans, because I went on social media just to see how vets responded to that clip. It went over so bad it crossed all party lines for the nations. It was so bad that the White House would be better off saying, "Hey, this is a sign of dementia," than him saying he said this, trying to explain it away, because it was the most made up cavalier thing that shows he's willing to sacrifice all of us on his behalf. That's what it shows. It's that type of leadership, because it's not about America, because he realized these are Americans whose families gave their kids to do this.
Yeah.
In the last this last week, I know this is the week in review, Ken. I have never seen such cataclysmic failures of morality, of strategy, and of economics all at the same time, maybe in my lifetime. It's like the confluence of stupidity and it's spreading rapidly throughout that administration.
Yeah.
And we are all feeling the cost, to where you have former MAGA people who are like, this is insane. Former Republicans, this is insane. Democrats been saying it. Independents have completely left ship with what's happening here as we get ready for $5 gas and all this other stuff.
Yeah, the lack of empathy is what strikes me, and I think is what other people are beginning to notice finally. It's
Mhm.
sociopathic. And look, I'm not a
Yes.
psychologist, but I've talked to a few about Trump, and they say that kind of inability to connect with real human suffering, to lie as casually about casualty figures as you do about your health or your golf
Mhm.
handicap is a pathology. And he's not getting away with it. The American people are holding him accountable. Vets are holding him accountable. But in the case of a Gold Star parent during a recent dignified transfer, a father actually came out and said, we never had that conversation. Pete Hegseth
Yep.
supposedly met with the families of the fallen, came on camera and said, they told me to finish the job, sir. And it took one of these parents. Can you imagine having to deal with that while dealing with the loss of your son? In this case, it was his son who was killed, and saying, that conversation never happened. I never said that
Exactly.
to the secretary.
Exactly. I would be so enraged, so livid. And, Hegseth comes off like a polished used car salesman so easily that, like you said, the lack of empathy, the lack of accountability is just, he's draped in it. He's draped in it. And let me be very clear to people who are watching and listening. The active duty force knows it. They cannot stand him. They can't speak out against him, but trust me, talk to many of them, text, whatever, all this stuff. They cannot stand him because they understand that they are disposable and are used as props for whatever he's got going on that week or whatever is in the forefront of his mind that day. And when you have no faith in your leadership, you're going to naturally question the mission. And the mission's already being questioned by the rest of the world. So the people actually being exposed to dangers and having to fight it are looking at this like whiskey tango foxtrot. I I don't understand what we're supposed to be doing here. And he has yet to provide the confidence nor the reasoning for their sacrifices.
Yeah. Military people, even super conservative ones, and there are a lot of them, have a sixth sense when it comes to the member in their unit who is the Blue Falcon, because you kind of have to. It's
Yep.
unlike
Yep.
many workplaces, it's a life and death question. And
Yeah.
somebody can put in the chat what Blue Falcon means, but Pete
Yeah.
Hegseth is the epitomization of the Blue
Yes.
Falcon, and he runs the
Yes.
department.
Dude, he turned the Pentagon into a Blue Falcon's nest. That's what he's done. That's exactly what he's done. And when you think about all the things that have happened just in that building, the various rings, the press corps getting kicked out, the leaks that are consistently coming out, that's what he has created. And so when he has to cross over the river and go and speak to Capitol Hill and be held accountable, he has nothing but culture war bluster. Unfortunately for him, physics of weapons engineering do not care about his culture war bluster. Counts of ammunition do not care about his culture war bluster. Ships being struck in not one, but now two straits around the world do not care about his culture war bluster. The world is looking at us being led by Tweedledee and Tweedledum in so many respects that our economic viability and our quality of life are now seriously in jeopardy in ways we have not seen. I'm going to be very clear, since World War II, because none of the wars we fought since World War II had this type of economic potential impact on us. This is
Yeah.
a different animal.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Strait of Hormuz. And what is going down there. The Houthis are a variable
Yep.
that, I mean, you and I trained for. This was always something in that area. The Houthis are a
Hmm.
relatively recent
Hmm.
evolution, but
Hmm.
that was always a danger, the Gulf of Aden, that area. And there doesn't seem to be any plan in this department for something that you and I would have seen coming as, junior lieutenants. Bring us
Yep.
up to speed.
Yeah. So here's the thing. When they decided to do this on February 28th, my initial thoughts were, okay, the Strait, that's a big deal. But Iran's biggest freaking force outside of their own regular construction of IRGC and the conventional forces, their biggest proxy are the Houthis. And they are battle hardened. Let me be very clear. They have been in consistent conflict off and on with Saudi Arabia for years. And they are in Yemen. And Yemen geographically is a choke point. And this is the part that we in modern day warfare are not thinking about. Geography is a battle weapon. Just like
Yes.
the way Iran is all up and down the coast of the Strait of Hormuz and the Persian Gulf, Yemen is literally the corner of the Bab el-Mandeb Strait right there at the Red Sea. 70% of trade goes through there. 70% outside of just oil. And so you have the BAM now being shut off by the Houthis. You have the freaking Strait of Hormuz shut off by the Houthis. And here's something that you can relate to too, Kim. You have Ukraine and Russia going at it. The Black Sea has been getting hit left and right. And the pipeline between the Caspian Sea and the Black Sea, which provides oil to the rest of the world, is consistently under threat. So you have not one, not two, not three, but 4 waterways in that geographical area of the world that will hold the world hostage because we're not thinking strategically enough. And so what does Trump want to do? They're stationing and putting people to have a massive offensive against Iran. They've already told our allies in NATO, they told Israel, they told all these groups, we're getting ready for it and we're awaiting final word. And let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, when that happens, when it happens, we are all going to feel it. We're all going to feel it.
We are. As a ship driver, can you
Yeah.
just inject a sense of realism here on how much a ground invasion can do to control a waterway? Because opening up the strait, I mean, it feels like
Yeah.
the administration is grasping at straws, that their moves here are not really to open up the strait, but to apply economic pressure so that Iran will open up the strait, which injects a whole new conversation about how much tolerance for pain Iran has, which is apparently
Right.
a lot.
Right. And I think we need to work backwards from what you just said. We completely underestimated, by we, I mean the administration, Iran's tolerance of pain,
Yeah.
both structurally and economically. But when you think about it, you literally have people now leading that country that came up under a sanctioned Iran. You know, think about it. 47 years is when the whole revolution started. You have people running that government under the age of 47 that know nothing but hardship when it comes to that. So they've been calcified to what what we're doing that would probably affect another nation. That's number one. Number two, a ship is a fool to fight a fort. However, forts can influence where ships go. That's the thought process that we have here. But again, that premise comes back from the big gunboat diplomacy era of the 19th and 20th centuries. In this drone warfare era, which Ukraine continues to brilliantly show us versus Russia. I saw
Yeah.
some of those pictures today. Wow. They For us to bring ships in and try to open the strait is much more complicated because of these drones, but you also still have the ground invasion to occupy the area, to the areas, plural, to keep those those shore batteries from hitting ships is going to require a lot of manpower, a lot of
Yeah.
resources, a lot of equipment, all these things that have to be coordinated with those forces at sea. So you're talking about a very complex operation that requires a large foothold, tons of munitions that apparently we're low on. So you got to ask yourself, how is this going to work? Number one, and then how do you sustain it? Number two, that's the other piece. Let's say
Yeah.
you're successful and all the blood and shedded tears gets you to capture those areas. How long can you hold it? How long are you willing to hold it? This is Iraq, Afghanistan on steroids because of what you're trying to do here. I don't know how you do it. Get ready for a draft because we don't have the people to do it. We don't.
And
Which is
Iran
why
knows we're coming. Yeah. Finish
exactly
the thought.
I was about to say, and which is why you see things like that automatic draft kicking in at the end of this year without any men having to sign up. You'll be automatically signed up, but we can't figure out how to automatically register people to vote. I find that hilarious.
Right.
But you're right though. how Iran has been waiting. They've even goaded us. It was like, we're waiting on you. They're putting out in their official strategic messaging, please come try to invade us. 47 years of a population that's been hardened, of facilities that have been created, and we think we can just waltz up in there because we're the big bad United States. It's the height of intellectual arrogance.
In the time we have left, I hate to do this because it's its own can of worms. Got to ask you about Cuba because going into Iran, Trump said, do it like we did Venezuela. Going into
Yeah.
Cuba, what's his instruction to the military going to be? That's not going to be a cakewalk either. This is a country that
Nope.
has been preparing. And it just feels like another example, and we see this throughout both of Trump's terms, of him trying to create another distraction to distract from his most recent failure.
Right.
And I think Cuba's on the table.
Well, first of all, for him to think that the distraction from his failure in the Middle East is to invade Cuba, whoo, this man must have failed every history class. Well, hell, he was alive when Bay of Pigs went down. And
Yeah.
this is think about this. We tried doing this at the height of our powers during the Cold War with a military much more massive, with overwhelming force, and we not only lost, we were embarrassed. Now you're talking about doing this where, by the way, you still have forces stretched all over the world. We're still not talking about what's happening over in the South China Sea. We're not talking about what's happening on the African continent.
Yep.
We're not talking about Venezuela and all the support that's needed there. We are stretched unbelievably thin. And yet we have the nerve to talk about Cuba. And in the last month, Greenland has come back up. How, Sway? As the kids would say, how? How are you going to make that logistically happen? I just told you how many people it's going to take to basically occupy Iran, even at the shore batteries you're talking about. We don't have the manpower, we don't have the munitions, and most importantly, we don't have the will of the people to do this. But he's got to change the narrative because this right here, Iran, is going to be what he is remembered for. And
Yeah.
that's saying something because he's got an insurrection, he's got some impeachments, he's got Citadel casinos, but this is what's going to make him memorable to historians hundreds of years from now. And I think he realizes that and he can't handle it. And there's nothing he
Yeah.
can do because this was a choice on him that we as an American people have unified against, which is amazing. So yeah, he brought us together, not in the way he thought, but this is what history is going to remember him for. And so Cuba, as great as it may seem, that's not going to be enough to distract.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you find that silver lining. I do as well. I don't see Trump signs anymore when I drive through
Mm-mm.
rural Ohio. I think if we are able to emerge from this with anything like a lesson learned, it'll be, well, that didn't work. Let's not do that again.
Yep.
And we can put the lie to this whole MAGA notion. Bobby, did I?
So oh, I think Ken just froze up. Well, hopefully, he can hear me. But thank you guys. Thank you guys very much. And real quick, just to wrap things up, talk to your congressman, people. Talk to your congressman. There are some very important votes that are happening here, specifically the Attorney General of the United States, Todd Blanche. And on top of that, you know, this War Resolutions Act that the Senate failed to pass, but the House did. So please continue to needle your representatives and continue to stay informed and keep tuning in to Midas Touch Plus. Follow Ken on his Substack, follow me on mine, and I cannot thank you all enough.